Fantastic. So ultimately, what we'd like to do today for today's manufacturing user group meeting is chat with some industry experts. We've got Matt Maurer and Subhash from their respective companies. We're going to take 20 minutes with Matt and then with Subhash to go through some specific questions about their business process, Rootstock in particular for Matt, and what his path looked like when he was implementing it, best practices, things to note, and really things that are just advantageous for anyone who's listening live or listening on the recording after the fact. We'll have a little bit of time after Matt's session to just chat through any questions, commentary, or anything that maybe wasn't covered. We'll do the same thing with Subhash, a bit more tailored towards integration and Dell Boomi work and his experience with Dell Boomi and implementing with Salesforce and an ERP. And then we'll spend the last couple minutes at the end chatting through any questions that come out of that, as well as Dreamforce. So that's coming up next week. I know there's a few folks on this call that will be in attendance there, so we can chat through just really anything that might be going on that's worth attending, people meeting up, and everything in between. So anything else to add to that, Tony, before I kick things off and we can start chatting with Matt?
Nope, sounds great. Thanks, Jason.
Perfect. All right, so ultimately we're going to kick things off with Matt. And Matt has been in the industry and specifically works at MDF. And Matt, are you able to provide a little bit of background as to what your business does and what that journey began to look like as you look to find an ERP and where Salesforce fell into that?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, that's MDF. We sell stethoscopes, sphygmomanometers, tough word to say, and neurological hammers. And been around since 1971, and we've been on numerous platforms. And we've been using Salesforce as our CRM, and then our ERP's been in a number of other things. So our transition here has been to stay on the Salesforce platform and get something that connects more appropriately with it. And that's kind of where we found Rootstock, which dovetailed perfectly into us starting a manufacturing company here in Puerto Rico. And Rootstock has played a major part in that.
Understood. And just kind of piggybacking right off of that, some of the main challenges MDF has experienced prior to implementing Rootstock as the ERP solution. Could you kind of walk us through some of those? Some might be more generic, some might be more specific, but what that looked like.
Yeah, so some of them kind of start just from having our CRM on one platform and having all those reports going on there, and then not having our financial data, being able to easily marry that together, not being on the same platform. But as we kind of move forward, the reporting that Salesforce offers, just the multitude of ways you can slice and dice the data, really brought us to where we are with Rootstock, and has begun to provide immense value.
Perfect. So leveraging some of those report types and some of the things that you're getting with Rootstock are really helping alleviate those pains.
Yeah, I mean, we sell a multitude of products, models, colors, you name it. We do it. And so being able to really break down those product types, break down the objects, and then get down to the dimensional level as we're internally reporting has really helped us be able to understand our data.
Yeah, no, I could absolutely see that, especially with master data and transactional data for that matter, or especially with your products and the different SKUs and the line items underneath of each of those. So that makes sense, and that's definitely interesting to hear about. I think having Salesforce alongside Rootstock, addressing these business challenges, really, where do you think it's more of dovetailing off of what we just chatted about, but where has Salesforce really helped out on that? Is it the reporting layer that you mentioned, and where has Rootstock really been, hey, this is where it's really helping out our process, whether it's the actual opportunity itself or the actual product itself. Where is Salesforce specifically, and where is Rootstock specifically helped out in those business challenges?
So from the Salesforce side, the CRM, I haven't really been on the sales side, but from what I hear from our salespeople, they've really enjoyed being able to continue to follow up with customers and do the appropriate things in the sales cycle, and provide ultimately better forecasts to me from an operations finance perspective. So I've appreciated the Salesforce component to that. From a Rootstock side, it's been nice to be able to look at our operational functionality as we've begun this new manufacturing company here, and really plan out and develop this manufacturing company to the best of its capabilities. I mean, we're doing, within a very short period of time, we've been able to spin up this business and do a lot of really good work in a short amount of time. And a lot of that's due to the Rootstock ERP and their planning tools around that.
Fantastic. So yeah, on the sales side and things that maybe you're not touching as much, but obviously are feeding a lot of that information and advice that's being pushed over. So the sales team using it as a traditional CRM, and then Rootstock really allowing you to leverage and stand up your manufacturing business itself. So that's two perfect, I think, use cases for use your Salesforce, use the native CRM, whether it's Sales Cloud or some element of that, and then on the Rootstock side, really leverage it to handle all your ERP needs and really focus in on the manufacturing and kind of getting your financials and things like that out of that particular add-on to it. All right, I would say what some of the things when you were going through evaluation. So I'm sure either folks listening or just kind of anyone who's going through these exercises of trying to figure out whether or not do you need a enterprise level CRM or enterprise level ERP system or anything like that. But was there a certain reason or certain reasons that pushed you towards Rootstock ERP versus other ERP solutions? I think that's something that definitely adds value. Evaluate.
Oh, go ahead. I mean, one of the things that really pushed us in that direction was the multi-currency. We are a global company. We are all around the world. I mean, we're in every continent, making those sales. So the global currency was a large part of that. Oh, sorry. And then the other thing is just being able to have the one source of truth. I mean, when you're dealing with all these different platforms and trying to marry data across and just making sure you're understanding what the data tells you, being able to have one source of truth has been important to us.
Fantastic. And, I guess another big thing when folks are trying to evaluate different ERP systems. So you mentioned multi-currency as being a massive factor and the source of truth. I'm not sure, how many ERP solutions you guys kind of whittled it down to before making your final call, but was there anything else or kind of anything else to add to that that might help, whether it's decision makers or any of the subject matter experts who are trying to help the decision makers at their company go one way versus the other? Was there any other deciding factors that led to the Rootstock selection?
I think the big thing there for us is as we were spinning up our manufacturing at this time, the shop floor solution was with Rootstock was really important. Um, I mean, with that, it also started bringing up the question of who is going to be able to help us implement this, right? We're a small, large company, and being able to find a partner that could help us implement this was important. And that's where Mountain Point came in for us. And they've been actually able to get us online and going first with the manufacturing company, and just be able to push us all the way through from manufacturing to sales. So it's been a long, arduous task. Moving ERPs is not easy, but with Mountain Point's help, we've actually been able to get through those hurdles and deal with the difficulties of change.
Absolutely, and I've been a part of some ERP moves as well and migrations, and it's it's not for the faint of heart. So that makes sense and definitely aligns with at least what my experience has been so far. So, but no, that's great to hear. And I think we're gonna ask later on in this segment Subash a little bit more detailed oriented questions for some of the work that he's done with Dell Boomi and connecting ERPs to Salesforce for that. But my thought process is, your experience using an ETL tool to help connect and really leverage Rootstock and in combination with Salesforce, and I know that the Shopify and the what you guys are using for that side of things. So whatever your experience has been with that so far would definitely, I think, be insightful.
Yeah, I mean, we've been through a lot of changes here, and we've recently moved to Shopify midway through our kind of spin up of Rootstock, and so we had to quickly find an ETL tool to be able to bring that data over from Shopify and get it into Rootstock. What we found was Boomi was the best. Being able to offer everything that we needed brought into our system. Between our discounts, our offers, our customization that we provide to our customers is a very, very tricky task to try to bring into an ERP. And Boomi was literally the only one that was able to handle the full customization that we were trying to bring into Rootstock.
Understood.
And so it turned out to be a fantastic solution, and it works amazingly.
Fantastic. No, that's and we'll definitely dive a bit more into some of the more nuanced questions of Dell Boomi and some of the best practices surrounding that. But definitely hearing that story of how connecting Rootstock and Salesforce to your Shopify instance is definitely valuable information. In terms of challenges, just more overarching as a manufacturer, trying to think through what are you really trying to overcome and leverage Salesforce and Rootstock now that's fully been implemented. Just kind of what your story is.
I mean, the largest challenges I think everyone in the manufacturing space is dealing with is inventory, both bringing it in from around the world, planning those resources, both from an internal side and from a material side. And what we've seen out of Rootstock is it's really been able to allow us to be a lean company, both from planning our individuals' time to get those finished goods out the door. And so that's been one of the things that has been the most difficult in my eyes to understand as we're really beginning this manufacturing journey. But it's also been one of those things that Rootstock has been able to help us get under control relatively quickly and be able to ultimately provide for our doctors and nurses around the world.
Absolutely. And I think that story is definitely something a lot of people that will resonate with a lot of folks. But I think as I asked you most of those questions and kind of going through that, is there anything either from your side or anyone on the call side that had any questions or just really discussion points to better build off of what Matt's mentioned and that valuable experience that he's already laid out?
So Jason, again, thanks for taking those questions, and Matt, thank you again for your time. So just a couple of questions, maybe if you could touch upon. So with the current economy and all that, supply chain all over the place a little bit, I'm just curious about how you guys are leveraging like maybe the CRM side or the Rootstock side. How are those tools helping you guys manage this current volatile supply chain at the moment?
Whew. Well, the CRM side has been nice from our salespeople following through and making sure we get those forecasts as locked in as possible. And then the beautiful part about of Rootstock and their shop floor planning has been being able to quickly adjust our lead times across all of our products. There's a lot of small pieces that go into our stethoscopes, and it's been relatively easy to be able to adjust those for the different lead times that have caused all the supply chain that are in the problem of all the supply chain issues. And then I have to bring up Mountain Point in that they've been instrumental in our ability to be able to handle all of these changes that have been going on throughout the world, and be able to get these things done and implemented all during COVID. So, I mean, it's been fantastic from that perspective to be able to get things done. And so Mountain Point's really been able to get us across the finish line there.
Thank you, Matt, on that. Just so you're using demand planning in Rootstock as well? Is that what you use right now, or are you using a separate tool for it? Oh, okay.
Yep.
I see.
There's. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, finish your thought. Sorry.
No, I mean, we have multi levels to our inventory and how we're looking to get this distributed. But demand planning has been instrumental with using our CRM as kind of the guiding force as our production has increased over the years.
And then one last question, I'm sure, most of the folks would relate to this, right? So as you went through this journey of a cloud-based ERP, right? As you guys went through it, is there one or two things you would advise the other members to be aware of as they plan through an ERP implementation, like saying these are one or two things you should really do? Otherwise, it takes a lot of time and, you're going to get bogged in. Is there any specific advice you could share?
My biggest thing would probably be the best laid plans are going to change no matter what you're doing. There's always, with going to a platform that is so large in Rootstock, no matter how much you plan, it's going to change. And the current way you're doing things today may not fit exactly in how the platform is doing, how the platform is working, but more than likely the platform's way of producing those results is probably better than what you're currently doing. And it's just being able to change and adjust, I think, is one of the largest things when implementing a new ERP.
Fantastic. Thank you, Matt. Those are my questions, Jason.
Perfect. And I think we've got time for about one more if there is any other questions. If not, we can roll right into our section with Subhash. All right. With that, we've got Subhash here. And Subhash, we talked a little bit about Dell Boomi with Matt and how they're leveraging it with Salesforce and Rootstock as and connecting that to Shopify. I know just from previous conversations and just myself knowing you're doing that at an ERP to CRM level. But I think before we get into some of those specifics, could you tell us a little bit about, the background of, the business that you're a part of at Green Tweed and what that looks like and what your day-to-day would be over there?
Okay, so my name is Subhash Paradi, and I work for Green Tweed and Company. So Green Tweed is a leading global manufacturer of high-performance elastomers. Sorry, you can't hear me?
Yeah, we can, Subhash. Yeah. Sometimes it's things. Yeah, go ahead.
So they manufacture high-performance elastomers, thermoplastics, composites, and engineered components which can withstand high-pressure temperature. And we cater wide variety of industries like aerospace, energy, semiconductor, oil and gas, life science, defense, and various other industries globally, I would say. And Green Tweed has been there for almost 150 years now. And our ERP system is SAP. So primarily we use SAP, but for CRM, we did choose Salesforce as an option. And we chose Boomi to integrate with Salesforce and SAP.
Fantastic. And no, that definitely offers, I think, everyone a little bit of insight into what that looks like from the entire company wide and what those solutions are. I think really some of my questions stem from, some of the primary and main rationale for developing and maturing your ERP to Salesforce solution, so that SAP to Salesforce solution, whether it's in the, was it product driven, price driven, order driven, or anything else in that category?
So primarily, we introduced Salesforce, we introduced a different CRM earlier. We introduced C4C, which was a SAP product. And for some reason, it couldn't cater the needs of our outside sales. So that's the reason that prompted us to get into Salesforce, because we needed something where a software that could understand our business and that could help our outside sales to interact more proactively with the customers. So when the outside sales go and visit the clients, so they can at least have a real-time data in front of them when they meet the client, so as they can help them out, resolve their issues. That was one thing. Then we also wanted to have a better collaboration among employees to share the data, and so as everybody can be on the same page rather than having different chunks of data. So that was another thing. And we also wanted to have a better financial accountability based on using this software.
Yeah, and I think that definitely makes sense, especially with, outside sales using, whether it's the Salesforce mobile platform or just kind of, being on site and using the full-fledged CRM and the online version of that, and having the information at their fingertips is definitely a value for really any manufacturing company with outside sales that are, working with potential prospects or working with existing clients. So that definitely makes sense. And I guess from the need for the frequency of that data from SAP into Salesforce and what that sync looks like, is it single direction? Is it bi-directional? What that looks like, and where has Boomi helped with that process? I guess starting with the how frequent do they need that data, and where's Boomi really helped and really expedited that process?
So we have both kind of data syncs, like from SAP as a source to Salesforce, from our ERP to Salesforce, as well as from Salesforce to our ERP. So let me give you an example. Like we have opportunities and inquiries that are created in Salesforce, and those opportunities and sales inquiries need to be sent across to our ERP to create an actual inquiry in the ERP. And based on that, the other sales documents are created. And that's very critical for the outside sales, because when they are when they get a new opportunity, they want their opportunity to be counted right away. So they create the data in SAP, so in Salesforce. And what happens is they are looking for that inquiry to be passed on to our ERP right away. So we have an on-demand sync. Like the moment they create the data, it picks up the information. Boomi picks up the information, and it sends it across to SAP. And Boomi has been really helpful for us in transforming the data. So it's very instantaneous. Like the moment it reads the data from Salesforce, it calls the remote function calls in ERP and posts the data over there. So we didn't have any trouble in configuring that solution.
Yeah, and
So that's one thing. So sorry, go ahead.
No, continue.
Yeah. So we also have like for data sync from our ERP to Salesforce, like when the inquiry is created in the ERP, that inquiry, the inquiry number from our ERP is sent back to Salesforce and updated back in Salesforce via Boomi. Similarly, the codes that are created for those inquiries or the sales orders, the respective sales documents created against that inquiry is sent across back to Salesforce using Boomi. And we use an IDOC technology, like we use the IDOCs from SAP to send the data across, and Boomi has a listener. So it has a listener which the moment the data is created in SAP, it listens to that document and then sets it across to Salesforce. So we have both way sync, and the timing wise, like for inquiries or opportunity, it's instantaneous. Similarly, for quotes or even sales documents, it's again instantaneous. The moment it's created, it's sent across, and we are running on schedule, like a batch job for sending the quality notifications and other documents. So it depends. It primarily depends on the master data or the transaction data which you want the Salesforce community to see that information.
Absolutely. And that insight, especially of, how it's really the full life cycle of the in the management of the opportunity, starting in Salesforce from those outside sales reps, and then entering the ERP where it can be spec'd out a bit more, and documents and files and specs attached to it, and then push back into Salesforce. Kind of completing that two-way sync. And you mentioned some of the different, whether it's a certain shape or, and this is more Boomi terminology than anything, but branches and shapes. I'm not sure if there's anything specific. You talked about listeners and how that's really helping that process, especially whether it's batch or helping with the documents and anything like that. But I'm not sure if you had any, for anyone who's maybe just starting their Dell Boomi journey, any thoughts or recommendations for best practice for maybe certain shapes to use or certain branches that may help with an opportunity process could be an example. So any insight you can add to that would be great before we kind of move on into a few different other areas of Boomi.
Yeah, so shapes wise, the best thing I would suggest is when connecting to Salesforce, it's always advisable to use the connector, the Salesforce connector provided by Boomi. It's a pre-configured solution provided by Boomi, which connects directly to Salesforce. So I would suggest using a connector there. And for shapes wise, we can also use a process route, which can help identify the document and send the documents to specific paths. Then we have something called as a fine chain shape, where it records the entry based on a unique key. And if there is any duplicate, it triggers that document to you saying that, hey, this is a duplicate. And it lets the user know and allows the user to take an action what needs to be done for that document.
Perfect.
And connector wise, other connectors, sorry.
Yeah, no, I was curious about more of the connector.
Yeah, so for even for SAP, we have a direct connector, like an ERP connector that connects directly to our ERP to send the data. So what it does is it does Boomi calls, remote function calls that could be directly called from the ERP connector. That helps to transfer the data immediately. And for improving the performance, I would say use batching of the data. So suppose we have like 100,000 records, it's much easier to batch the record. That's another shape that could be used to control the document flow. And we can also use the queuing service provided by Boomi that would run the background job for you and then queue the documents for you to process into Salesforce. Now, the problem is like when you send like thousands of documents at one go to Salesforce, you see an error coming across there. You see an error there. So in order to avoid that, you can use the queue service or the batching service. That's the better way of sending the data to Salesforce.
Absolutely. And especially, you kind of get into more on the Salesforce side when, a Salesforce administrator may be seeing error messages and then also trying to figure out, well, did this create records? Did this update records? Did this delete records? Having a bit more control using batch. And if one fails, what does that look like when it tries to, re-push that data and things like that. So that's definitely all, I think, valuable information and naturally goes right into something I was thinking about of, what makes sense from a Salesforce object structure standpoint, or really leveraging certain things such as whether it's external keys or certain field types or certain relationships that are beneficial to leveraging the full capabilities of Boomi and how it can best sync with the ERP. So if there's any Salesforce tips, more I call them admin or architect tips that you can kind of shed some light on, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, for Salesforce connection, again, I would say like whenever we are connecting to Salesforce, we always need to make sure that we are adhering to the external keys. Like we have both the 15-character key as well as the 18-character key, and Boomi would talk to Salesforce using the 18-character key, which is defined in Salesforce. That's one thing that needs to be taken care while sending the data to Salesforce. And when we are extracting the data from Salesforce, it's always advisable to limit the result set. That way, you won't put much pressure, much threshold on the software. And another thing is like we can use the SQL feature, SOQL to debug the queries from Salesforce. So Boomi allows you to debug those SOQLs and see where the data is failing or if there is any failure point. That's one thing we can take care in Salesforce.
Yeah. And
now,
I was just going to ask to build off of that just a little bit. I wasn't sure if you had anything else there.
So we can use the APIs provided by Salesforce to connect, and the Salesforce connector allows you the Boomi, which Boomi has a Salesforce connector, which allows you to either insert the data, append the data, or so you can upsert the data or delete the data, depending on the need. So that's one good functionality you have in Boomi. So you don't have to use another SOAP adapter or anything to call the data. You can just use the Salesforce connector there.
Absolutely. And I think, you talk about that real time or as close to real time as possible integration that you've got. But my thought process is that, some of the challenges as a manufacturer that you're looking to overcome with these integrations, whether that be in the form of maybe pricing changes, highly transactional processes and data versus master data on that non-transactional level. What are some of the those challenges that you guys have faced?
So primarily, I would say the challenges we had initially was getting the opportunity from Salesforce to SAP to our ERP. And initially, when we had the C4C solution, the outside salespeople had difficulty in entering the data because they had to log into the ERP to record their opportunity or inquiry. But now they have mobile, like Salesforce app on their mobiles, they can use that to log in the opportunity. They can create contacts. If they meet anybody at the client place, they can create contacts right away on their mobile, which is directly transferred to ERP through Boomi. So that was the initial challenge they had, and this was definitely overcome using this feature now. And again, getting the real-time data when presenting to the client. So earlier, they never had that kind of feature for them. They always had to log into the ERP to get the data. But now, everything is there available for them on their fingertips, on their mobiles, using the Salesforce apps. So the integration definitely helped them to achieve that.
Fantastic. In terms of, ultimately leveraging Boomi as the enterprise solution, are there certain things that you experienced or that may have pushed leadership at Green Tweed into selecting Boomi as their enterprise ETL solution, or certain factors that helped with that?
So when you're choosing an ETL solution, the first thing advisable would be to look into the compatibility, like how compatible the tool is with your existing uh, operating systems at your end or the other platforms, because that way it will help you to integrate the system software right away. Next thing would be to make sure that the data quality is maintained. Like when you're sending the data from your ERP and sending it to a CRM, the ETL tool should maintain the data integrity there. And it should make sure that it would validate the data, it would cleanse the data, and consolidate the data the way you want it. Then other thing would be the price. Price definitely plays a bigger role in also identifying which ETL tool is better for you. Of course, if the tool is really great, then definitely price doesn't matter there. If it can cater all the needs for the business, then definitely yes. Then also look into the management and control, like how well the ETL tool is able to transform the data, and if there are any failures, how the ETL tool will be notifying the respective personnel to handle the situation and then resolve the issues. So these are some of the uh, topics I would say definitely the leadership should consider.
Yeah, and I think that it's not so far off from evaluations for ERP and CRM solutions at that level. But I think focusing on the compatibility, something that offers a connector like Boomi does with Salesforce and Boomi with SAP, and trying to leverage some of those things that gets you off and running without having to start from scratch is definitely something to consider. Absolutely. And is there anything else in particular that you wanted to add, Subhash, that maybe we didn't cover today, but we're just adding on to any of those items that you had just mentioned about considerations for leveraging Boomi or selecting an ETL tool before we open it up for questions for everyone else?
So I would just recommend saying that whenever you're looking for an ETL tool, please do consider all the aspects like the compatibility, data quality, price, the speed of the software, then the management and control before buying any ETL tool, because there are multiple ETL tools that can connect to Salesforce and that can integrate, but choose the one which is definitely going to cater your needs.
Makes sense. And for anyone who's on the call, is there any questions that Subhash may be able to lend some insight into?
Subhash, again, thank you for answering these questions from Jason. Right. So again, you shared a lot of insight about Dell Boomi and also the integrations from SAP and the Salesforce space. So maybe this might be a question. So there's a lot of admins, who are part of this user group. They're also looking at ETL tools like Dell Boomi or anything like that. So in your experience, what would be like one or two resources where these people can go to learn a little bit about for example, issues on Dell Boomi, like that? How do you, and anything else from a knowledge standpoint so that they can catch up on using the tool?
So Boomi has its own Boomi community, so we can register into the Boomi community,
Mm-hmm.
and Boomi does have their own support. So community is the best place to go and get resolution to any of the issues what you have. That's how even I've been doing it. Like, I just get onto Boomi community and try to get a solution over there. And if you don't see a solution there, you can post a question, and definitely they get back to you right away.
Okay. Thank you on that, Subhash. And then the other one, obviously, so you are integrating SAP, to Salesforce. I mean, which most of the manufacturers also use, right? And I know there is a trend now with a lot of manufacturers moving to SAP HANA as well. And I know you guys are also in the early stages of that as well. So again, I know it might be an early off question, but I'll let you answer it, and feel free to ignore it as well. Any other thoughts on, what are you guys doing from preparing, to do that transition? Again, just from an integration standpoint, I must, most of that is a pain point for most manufacturers. Any thoughts on that?
So yes, we are looking into multiple options into integrating. So Boomi can stay, Boomi might stay. I can say that because Boomi has been really working fine for us. So we never had any issues much with Boomi. So to transfer the data to Salesforce or to integrate back. But SAP is also offering, like, as for when you go to S4 HANA, SAP is also offering more flexibility or more tools to integrate, more ways to integrate. Earlier, there there was a PIPO solution, but PIPO never helped us in integrating well, because we had to write everything from scratch, even the connector. So that was a no-no for us. But Boomi definitely helped us because it had a connector right away available for us. So I think Boomi might be the solution for us, but it's still early for us.
Okay. No, thank you for that. And then the other topic is most of the admins, get into these integration projects most of the time. I mean, they provided these data sources, any external systems, and they're given the task to go figure out and integrate, with whatever Salesforce, right? So obviously, if they're using Dell Boomi, so in your experience, based on your different integration projects, right? Again, from a project standpoint, what are one or two things you would advise, admins to do this first before you go inside the tool and start tinkering out, integrating it? So what are one or two things which are very important on an integration project, which admins should do first?
So admin should first, like if they're considering Boomi, then definitely they should. Boomi gives you a real flexibility into doing a trial and error connection. So you can just take the canvas, drag and drop the objects. That's the best part of Boomi. Like all you do is just drag and drop the objects, and you can do mapping also. So you can use the SOAP adapters. You have n number of connectors available in Boomi, and you can use those connectors to test out the third party software, whichever you are trying to connect to. That would be the best part, I would say. Like, just take the software, go onto the trial version, or just try to connect it using the connectors and see how it works out for you. And based on that, you can leverage it further or add more components to that.
Okay.
And Boomi is very flexible in that.
Okay. Thank you again, Subhash. I mean, those are my questions for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and one other thing, as Bhuyan was asking some of those great questions, that I was thinking about was, another consideration that someone or a decision maker should be thinking about when selecting in the proper ETL tool. Subhash talked about compatibility with the ERP and the CRM, as well as price point being something, but also the knowledge base that's already out there for whether it's the community for Boomi or the community for Salesforce. And that's invaluable when a resource, whether it's in-house or a partner, is able to leverage an existing community and a knowledge base that allows them to accomplish what they need to. And if they can't do it natively, working with other folks in that particular ecosystem. So for Boomi to have that, and for Salesforce to have that, and some of these other platforms, large considerations to take in as you're evaluating the tool. But I really want to thank Subhash and Matt for lending some insight into each of their respective companies, processes, the different platforms of Rootstock, Dell Boomi, SAP, and Salesforce, and some of those different areas. And I think for the sake of what we're doing for this user group, I know some of the people on the call today are going to be out at Dreamforce, and we can take some of the things that we've learned, and whether it's for future conversations or just kind of to meet up with anyone in the manufacturing user group, or to align, whether that's in the form of I think Patrick and a few other folks on the call are already going to be out there having some breakfasts, meeting up, going to specific sessions. But for anyone who's in the Philadelphia area, I know that there's a virtual viewing event at the Eigen headquarters, which is in King of Prussia. So if anyone wants to do that, that's next Wednesday. And ultimately, I can put more details in the user group on that. But if anyone is looking to connect out there, please use the user group. I know Tony and Andrew, who also helped moderate the group, and Booyan and a few other folks, would definitely love to, if they're not going to be able to meet you there, we can put you in contact with someone who is there, who might be part of the group or might be advantageous to meet up with. So not sure if, anyone else on the call has anything else to add to that. I know we're about 10 minutes early, but,
Right. So Jason,
yeah.
Just two things. Thanks for that. Again, for those folks, who are looking at Dreamforce, right, as Jason kind of pointed out. So I would say there are, I had a blog which I just created with 4 sessions, which you should look at. And just on a high level, I would definitely recommend looking at the manufacturing cloud roadmap session. Again, this would be a good one if you're attending Dreamforce, because roadmaps are only done at Dreamforce, not everywhere. So that's a must attend session in person. And then obviously the manufacturing keynote, which would give you a little bit of more use cases on what manufacturers can look at. And you're welcome to, join with us, next Wednesday, as Jason pointed out, in our King of Prussia office as well, where other manufacturing clients are also coming as well.
That definitely makes sense. And as much as we try not to use, anyone who's whether they're partners or products, specific, working for certain companies and partners of Salesforce, try not to pitch too much. But it is a great event, the one next Wednesday, if you're not able to make it out to San Francisco for the Salesforce Dreamforce event. So is there anything else to add from anyone else on the call? So thanks for the insight there, Booyan. But if not, we'll look to close it out, and I'll look to Tony to kind of wrap things up on the recording and closing out the meeting side. But I just want to thank Matt and Subhash again for their time and insights. So I know it's definitely going to be great to have this as a recording and to share it with folks in the industry. And it looks like Tony, I think, may have a few words.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. Thank you guys for attending. I appreciate the insight, the conversation. For a complex solution, it's difficult to be concise, and I feel like you guys did a really good job of doing that. So thanks again. I do think the direction you have, the advice you have, and some of the learned experiences on not only how to even vet the technology, but how to appropriately attack an implementation is well served in this conversation. So thank you so much. I'll go ahead and stop the recording, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. And have a great rest of your Thursdays.
Yep. You too. Thank you.
Yep.